An ordinary shift for a police officer.
It started out as nothing.
It was innocuous. It was a little crime.
Can quickly take an extraordinary turn.
A simple traffic stop went stratospheric within 2 minutes.
Speed is 70 miles an hour.
He's outside the petrol station fighting with another male.
A routine case.
You can start off with something and it can turn into something completely different.
Taser! Taser! On to your front now!
Can suddenly spiral into a serious incident.
Then it switched. He locked the door. She knew that something was very, very wrong here.
Stand by, I think we're going to have a decamp. One got out with a baseball bat. There's a ton of cannabis in the car.
They were literally on a rampage.
Sometimes the most minor crimes.
I was looking for a stolen quad bike, found a lot more.
Can crack major cases.
We were now possibly looking at a serial killer.
Today on Big Little Crimes, a minor accident spirals into a huge case of insurance fraud.
And I then found behind a radiator around about £10,000, the most money I've ever had my hands on.
A routine stop and search uncovers a fearless criminal with a head for heights.
How he was able to do that is mind-blowing, extremely dangerous.
And a taste for violence.
This is a suspect of not only one, but 2 murders.
But first, an ordinary traffic stop puts an officer right in the line of fire.
I saw the gun, I was very close to it. I knew how much danger I was in.
John Barber's always been a country boy at heart.
I had been brought up in the countryside. I spent time on the farm as a child. I lived in a small village and I liked rural life.
So early in his career, when he got the chance to police the Forest of Bowland in Lancashire, he simply couldn't say no.
You'd wake up in the morning and you'd hear the curlews singing in the fields. You'd watch all the seasons flow in front of your eyes. It was just a wonderful place to live.
And it's not a bad place to work either. John's patch was 77 square miles of countryside.
The beauty about being a rural beat man, you'd get all sorts of inquiries, all sorts of people coming knocking at your door. I think that's one of the exciting things about being a bobby. The fact you can start off with something and it can turn into something completely different.
That's exactly what happened one ordinary day when John was on patrol.
I was in a very remote rural area and I saw this car came up behind me. I noticed that it was a left-hand drive car and it just stood out as being wrong immediately.
John knows every inch of his remote patch, and this car just doesn't fit.
So I pulled over and he went past. I was in my own car, I wasn't in a police vehicle marked or anything like that. And as it went past, I made a note of the registration number.
John radios for a vehicle registration check. He starts to follow the car.
It came through that it was a car, should have been a Ford Orion. This was a Ford Granada.
His instinct is right. The car has got false plates and has probably been stolen. And when the driver pulls over, John decides to take a closer look.
His car was parked just over there. So I pulled my car in here alongside, got out of my car, his window was open, and I spoke to the driver. I just said, "Good morning."
John wants to check the driver's details.
And he pointed this sawn-off shotgun, which was laying on his lap. And he just picked it up and pointed it at me.
In a matter of seconds, a very routine vehicle check has taken a very dangerous twist.
I saw the gun, I was very close to it. I knew how much danger I was in.
John's standing at point-blank range. If the driver pulls the trigger, he doesn't stand a chance.
I just backed off like that. Car door opened, so I carried on. He had then started to make back to the car, and then he drove off.
The armed suspect escapes in his car, leaving John with a split-second decision to make. Fight or take flight.
It's difficult to describe just what I felt. I felt that it was my duty, and I wanted to chase after him, but I was also aware of the fact that it was a dangerous situation, but it had to be done. And away I went as fast as I could.
This is John's patch, and he knows the roads inside out. But he's driving his personal car, he's unarmed, and the nearest backup is 12 miles away. He's on his own.
The nearest town, which Clitheroe, that was 12 miles or more away. I knew there would be no other police officers in the area.
As he gives chase, John makes an emergency call for backup. And over at Clitheroe Police Station, word soon reaches Neil Thompson that there's a gunman on the loose.
Somebody came in the office and said, have you heard this on the radio? No, what's that? John Barber's disturbed him. He's chasing a man with a gun. And that was the first thing, and then, so that's it. It's all hands to the pump then. We all turn out.
But they're half an hour away from John, still on the tail of the armed suspect.
I was right up behind him. He crashed through the gate of a field, but I thought, well, I've got to keep watch of him, so I followed him into the field.
As police officers, you click into that mode of protecting one another, so everybody wanted to get here as soon as they could. Where John is, it's a long way from the police station. A long way.
I got to the top of the brow, and I could see a wall, and I could see his car, and I couldn't see him. He wasn't sat in a car.
The suspects ditched his car and made a run for it. But John's not giving up yet.
I was a little bit concerned that I might have lost him, because it's open countryside here. There's places that he could have hidden quite easily. I stood on top of the wall to try and get a better view and looked across the fields. I couldn't see him, didn't know whether he was laid down anywhere.
Neil thinks he's getting closer, but there's a problem.
You always get that lull, you know, in communications when the radio transmission stops, and you think, well, because anything could have happened. First and foremost, is John safe? That's first and foremost. Where's John? Where is he?
He had to be somewhere. I couldn't see him. He wasn't in sight. I was still looking. I looked along the side of the wall to my right-hand side, and I could see him crouching behind the wall. I shouted at him, said, "You're not going to get away. You're surrounded. Give yourself up."
John's now face to face with the suspect again. He tries to bluff his way out of it and convince the armed man he's outnumbered. It's an old trick, but will it work?
I said, "I want you to throw your gun down." Again, took 2 or 3 times before he did it, but he did it, and then once he'd thrown the gun down, I sort of jumped on him and I said, "Give me your hands," and he put his hands behind him and I held his hands behind his back.
John's got his man, but it's not over yet. Backup is still on its way, meaning it's just the two of them. John faces an agonizing wait for help.
I got on his back. I could see the gun quite clearly. I could see the cartridges quite clearly. I wanted that help to come. I needed that help to come. I think it was about 10 minutes from the time I got hold of him before somebody came to my help. It was a great relief for me. I was elated and, to a certain extent, emotional as well because of the relief. He was taken away from me and went into a police car.
After a high-speed pursuit and a daring chase on foot, the armed suspect is now in custody, and it's all thanks to John.
Were you angry that he was on your patch?
I was.
Because knowing you as I do,
yeah.
It's like, well, you're not getting away with this. You're on my patch.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. You don't come out here and do things like that.
No.
But I didn't want him to get away. I wasn't prepared to let him get away.
But what was he running from? Back at the station, Neil now needs to work out why he was so keen to get away.
We searched the car, obviously. Underneath the compartment where the spare wheel was, I found what I called a compact burgling kit. He would have put the tights over his face in order to obviously try and conceal his identity. The sharp-bladed instrument, which is a Stanley knife, so it's a cutting implement, but it can also be used as an offensive weapon. The cable ties were there for incapacitating people. The hacksaw blade, obviously to go through metal, so any sort of locks, anything metal, could be a padlock, something like that, and also small torch, illumination. So here you've got a perfect little burgling kit.
A rural copper's hunch about a dodgy vehicle has uncovered a dangerous crook who clearly wasn't visiting his patch to enjoy the scenery.
So as well as the burgling kit, we've got the stolen car, we've got it on false plates, we've got the sawn-off shotgun, we've got the ammunition. He's just got everything in order to commit crime.
Neil's convinced that the suspect has been doing exactly that. But now he needs to find the victims. He's certain he's behind burglaries and other crimes committed in the area. But before Neil starts to investigate, the suspect makes an astonishing request.
The sergeant who was booking him in actually approached me and said, "I don't believe this." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, he's just asked me, can he have a few sheets of A4 paper and a pen, because he wants to write down every crime he's committed." And I said, "Happy days." I said, get him as much as he wants.
It's a huge moment for the investigation. Neil can't wait to hear what this criminal with a conscience has to tell him. And what he's about to discover will transform this local case into a major national investigation.
He's busy writing away reams, sheets and sheets of A4 paper of crimes that he committed up and down the country. He'd gone off the rails, sadly. He was from a good family. He just wanted to get everything out of the way and start afresh.
He's certainly got plenty to get off his chest.
Cumbria, Merseyside, Manchester, Shropshire and Cheshire. This man is in custody. He's admitting all these offences in these areas. There was a lot of offences. I would estimate up to 100 crimes. 100 crimes that he admitted to.
It's an incredible confession list by a one-man national crime wave. He's remanded in custody. And Neil can't wait to share the extraordinary news with police forces across the country.
So you send out to the chief constable of those forces, this man is in custody within the Lancashire Constabulary. He's admitting all these offences in these areas. Can you please check and come back to us? Then you get the phone calls then. The phone is red hot. He wasn't a wanted man, because a lot of them, they didn't know he was responsible for committing those offences. So, I mean, the officers were elated, obviously, because I was able to give them the areas that I knew. Sometimes I was able to give them an address.
Opportunities like this to crack unsolved crimes don't come along often. And soon police forces are queuing up to speak to the suspect.
Police officers from different force areas have come and interviewed him. The other forces didn't have any evidence to connect him to the crimes, so they'd no fingerprint evidence. But he was quite happy to talk, and he was quite happy to admit everything that he'd done.
Incredibly, they now have the man behind countless burglaries and thefts across the country. But there's still one crime that needs solving. How did such a dangerous criminal get his hands on a shotgun? Neil runs the serial number through the national computer.
The firearm that we recovered, it was stolen from a burglary in Shropshire. The detectives coming up from Shropshire were really delighted that they hadn't a clue who committed it. It was examined, it was capable of being fired, he could intimidate anybody, and he could have used it on anybody.
The man is charged with intent to end life, endangering an officer's life, and a string of burglaries. He pleads guilty and is sentenced to 9 years in prison.
This man was a professional burglar, but without a doubt. He knew what he was doing. He had everything to commit those offences. So to actually take him off the streets and put him away in prison for 9 years is a fantastic result.
What began as a minor crime that could have had major consequences became the biggest case of both Neil and John's careers. It's the end of the road for a prolific criminal who hadn't banked on coming up against a copper prepared to protect his patch at all costs.
Get him off the streets, get him locked up. But there was also a great deal of pride in what I'd just done. I've locked up an armed blagger on my patch, and that really did give me a lot of satisfaction.
Our second case today starts as a routine check on a man acting suspiciously and exposes a trail of evidence left by a cold-blooded killer. During an illustrious career spanning over 3 decades, Detective Sergeant Ron Turnbull knew to always answer his phone.
When the phone call came in to us to say, we think we have another murder, then you just drop everything you're doing, put it to one side, get to that scene to evaluate it so that you don't lose the vital evidence that is there within the first 24 hours or so.
Ron was part of an elite group of forensic detectives who were the first to be called to major crime scenes.
What drove us on was more desire to find the perpetrators and get them out of the streets of London. The best part of the job, undeniably, was the fact that you were involved in these major inquiries. To be able to find the golden hour, the golden nugget of evidence that ultimately brought that person or persons to court was just phenomenal.
But not all big crimes appear that way at first. This one case started with a very run-of-the-mill call-out to a high-rise estate in South London.
This investigation really got started when a sergeant and some young training PCs were called to a suspicious individual.
The man is accused of shoplifting in a supermarket next to the tower blocks. And he isn't playing ball with the police.
He didn't really respond to the questions by the sergeant. So they started making inquiries. One of the officers was able to ascertain from somebody who lived in the block that this individual had a squat on the 10th floor.
The sergeant decides to take a closer look inside the squat where the man lives.
When they went in there, they could see that there was all sorts of property and items and artifacts lying around. Credit cards and checkbooks relating to different names. And it became obvious that this was more than just a simple stop in the street.
The man is arrested and his squat sealed off. Ron starts to search for forensic evidence. And it's not long before the case takes a major turn.
But in a plastic shopping bag, there was a bloodstained hammer. There were 2 pairs of rubber gloves. One had a finger missing, which was unusual.
This is no longer a case of shoplifting, but something much bigger.
You know, the fact that I was looking at a bloodstained hammer, which is broken, which means it, you know, the only way it could be broken is that such force was being used when it became damaged.
Ron decides to widen the search for evidence. His gut instinct is they don't need to look far.
I had 6 weeks prior to that, in that same block, dealt with the murder of a 52-year-old woman. So my mind was directed at this evidence. Was it related to that murder?
The killer is still at large. With all his years of experience, Ron knows when something is more than just coincidence. And what he discovered in the flat just a few floors above is still weighing on his mind.
The female victim had failed to turn up for work. The company that she worked for were concerned. They couldn't get an answer to her phone. So uniform officers were asked to make inquiries.
When they forced access to her flat, the missing persons case became a murder inquiry.
What I'm looking at is a photograph of the front door, which is where the female victim was found. The second photograph shows me that the view the officers had when they looked through the letterbox. They could see disarray in the hallway, and they could see what looked like shopping in a bag which was all over the place. So they forced an entry, and they found the dead body of a 52-year-old woman.
Her killer is still on the loose, and police are under huge pressure to crack the case. Ron's hunch is the suspect's squat holds the key. And he knows evidence is often to be found in the most unlikely of places.
Very few people look up when they're in a wardrobe. You look down and sideways or forward. But up above my head, basically up here, there were a number of checkbooks and credit cards. And when I subsequently removed them, some of those referred to a number of individuals, including the lady's address of 6 weeks hence. And that, for me, made it we now have a major suspect in her murder. There had to be a link.
Police now have enough evidence to put to the suspect. He's taken from his police cell to be questioned.
Throughout, he denied all knowledge. He said he'd found the bag in question containing the hammer and the gloves that morning. And he'd seen the credit cards and the checkbooks, and he was going to keep them anyway because he's a petty criminal.
What's more, he has an alibi.
And the girlfriend alibied him at initial stages by saying that he had been with her all that weekend of the murder.
It's a major blow, and only adds to the mounting pressure on Ron to solve the case. He continues to examine the squat. There's one item in particular that really catches his eye.
Extraordinarily, there was also a letterbox, an exterior letterbox, bearing the number 77. The finding of the letterbox was unusual, to say the least. I've never seen that before or since. Was it a trophy? We didn't know.
But where has it come from? Ron's instinct is that there's another crime scene. They need to find it, and fast.
So I got in touch with the investigating officers of the previous murder, asking the officers to go and knock on the door of all the 77s in the block surrounding the one I was working in.
It's a clever idea from a seasoned detective. Ron knows when to trust a hunch. And it's not long before officers find the flat they're looking for.
I'm looking at a photograph. I can see the exterior of that number 77, minus the letterbox, which was discovered in the squatters. And again, through that letterbox, officers were able to see that there was some disarray on the floor, and that led them to force entry.
What they find inside is about to blow the whole investigation wide open.
We were now possibly looking at a serial killer.
Our first two cases have involved dangerous criminals. But our next suspect is putting others at risk in a very different way. Could a small insurance claim inadvertently expose a much bigger fraud? For retired Detective Constable Mick Curtis, it's a fairly mundane Monday morning.
I was in the office at Worthing, just doing some paperwork, which all detectives would be doing.
But a query from another officer is about to put an end to Mick's routine duties.
He was dealing with a victim who had had a motorcycle crash, and he had no response from the insurance company, either by phone or letter, regarding his claim. He said it's a company called Just Bike Insurance.
Chasing insurance companies wouldn't usually be a police matter, but something about the situation just doesn't sit right with Mick.
He would have expected a reply from the insurance company, at the very least, but he couldn't even get through to the company, which seemed strange. Straight away, you're starting to think as a police officer, something's not right, I need to find out more. What was going on?
Some more digging reveals the man had seen an advert in a motorcycle magazine. He paid for his insurance by cheque and posted it to an address in the local area.
The address wasn't a business type address. It was definitely a residential address.
Mick's suspicions are heightened. Why would an insurance company be operating out of a suburban residential street?
I then made contact with the Insurance Bureau to see what they could tell me, because they should be registered with them. And we also contacted Companies House to see if we could find any details about Just Bike Insurance. And neither had any record of them as a registered company or a registered insurance company. So it started to raise a little bit of a worry in my mind that this Just Bikes was not genuine.
What started out as a minor accident claim has potentially turned into something much bigger. Mick quickly organises a search warrant for the house.
The first thing that struck me were the expensive electrical goods that were inside the house, which weren't in keeping with that property.
Something isn't adding up. Where is the owner getting the money to pay for all the valuable items?
I found some insurance certificates, which were blanks and headed Just Bike. I found some envelopes that had been addressed to Just Bike, in which were application forms and cheques for payment from various individuals. Also, I found the insurance certificate for the suspect's own vehicle with his name and details on it. So everything that I'm seeing is really making me think that there is something going on and that it's in the lines of an insurance fraud. I just needed more evidence.
If Mick's instinct is right, hundreds of unsuspecting motorcyclists could be riding around thinking they're insured when they're not, meaning they won't have protection if they have an accident. And when Mick compares the suspect's own insurance document from a well-known respected provider with the Just Bike policy, he makes a significant discovery.
This one has just got the Just Bike logo on the top, but actually, when you read through it, all the wording and all the terminology were identical from one form to the next across all the pages. And the suspect has just inserted the logo on each page.
It looks like the Just Bike policy has been copied from a genuine document, making it seem perfectly believable. And that's not all Mick's found.
Also in the house, we found a checkbook similar to this, which was a business account in the name of Just Bikes. This supported the fact that a business in the name of Just Bikes was operating from that address. Having now looked at all these documents, I was now confident there was a fraud.
But Mick has got no idea about the scale of the fraud. How many victims are currently riding around without valid insurance? He sends the seized documents to the lab for fingerprint analysis and immediately brings the homeowner in for questioning.
We interviewed the suspect with his solicitor, but on the advice of his solicitor, he went no comment to every question we put to him.
It's a frustrating blow for Mick. He needs to dig deeper into the suspect's finances.
I had obtained an order for the bank by now and identified the amount of funds, which were upwards of about £50,000 going through this business account.
But the money doesn't stay in the account for long. Cash withdrawals are being made frequently, making the money almost impossible to trace. Mick knows he's onto something big, but he's struggling to prove it. Then, a breakthrough. He finds a second property connected to the suspect.
This is where we found a box containing about £1,000 in cash. And I then found behind a radiator an envelope in which was around about £10,000. Be the most money I've ever had my hands on.
Mick also finds some building society accounts in the names of the suspect's children, with a staggering £30,000 in them. The sheer scale of the crime is becoming apparent. There could be hundreds of victims.
We were drawing together our jigsaw, and the jigsaw pieces were all fitting together nicely. We had money going into the business account, coming out of the business account, and now we had a substantial amount of cash and deposits into building society accounts. So we're now in a position where evidentially we had a really strong case.
The evidence continues to mount. The results are back from the lab, and they get a fingerprint match on the fraudulent documents.
We now had something to tie him to the blank certificates, the received cheques for Just Bike and the envelopes.
The offender has stolen a huge £50,000 in just 6 short weeks. Around 580 unsuspecting motorcyclists have given him their money. He pleads guilty to obtaining property by deception.
The judge sentenced him to 5 years imprisonment and an order for all of the monies that we had recovered to be repaid to the various policy holders that we had been able to identify. And I felt that we had actually got a result for the victims. This had all started because a man had dropped his motorcycle on the road by accident, caused some damage and tried to claim on his insurance. There were a lot of other people, over 500 people, still out and about on motorbikes, believing they were insured and they weren't. It started out to be quite a simple case, but it ended up being something much bigger.
There's one more case to close today. In London, a routine search of a high-rise squat has now spiraled into a murder investigation. Forensic officer Ron Turnbull is convinced the suspect in custody is the killer. And what's more, there could be other victims.
This is the landing on the floor. I think it's the 10th floor. This is number 77. What I'm looking at is the front door of where the front exterior part of the letterbox was missing.
The missing letterbox matches the one found in the suspect's squat, but there's no sign of the flat's owner.
They could see, looking through the letterbox, that it was ransacked and things were obviously stolen. You could see there was bank books and so forth on the floor. And when they went into the bedroom, they found the dead body of a male who had been bludgeoned to death.
It's a long way from the first call about a suspected shoplifter. This is now a double murder investigation. Ron needs more evidence linking their suspect to the scene.
I had found in the squat a checkbook and credit cards bearing the name of the victim in this occasion. When we see that they have been dated and signed sort of the days before I found them, this takes it to another step. This is somebody who has probably just murdered someone and is quite mindless of their situation and are practicing to try and get into his bank account and get money from his cash point.
It's further evidence against a cold-blooded killer. But there's still one more missing piece of the jigsaw. And he's convinced the bag found inside the squat holds the key.
Having seen the blood-stained hammer in this little bag, rubber gloves obviously to protect his fingerprints from being found, but one of them had a tip missing.
There's no sign of it at the first murder scene. But as investigators scour the second victim's flat for clues, they make a huge breakthrough.
The tip of a similar glove was found near to his body, and that was mechanically linked by the scientists subsequently. So this is another step in the process of drawing that individual into that crime scene.
It's a big one too. Ron knows the suspect's been inside the man's flat, but how did he get in there?
Unfortunately, they had no CCTV, The front door was secure. In fact, there was a grid outside and a metal grid. So, you know, perplexingly, is this the mode of entry?
Just like the first murder scene, there's no sign of forced entry. And it's left Ron baffled. Aware that so far the focus has been on inside the flats, he starts to think outside the box.
The shoe mark on the balcony alerted us to the fact that this could have been a point of entry. And there were also shoe mark impressions in a kitchen which looked onto the balcony. So now we had a situation where we knew that we had a climber, that someone who was able, by whatever means, to get in the balcony, get in the window, and perpetrate the burglary, and in this case, a murder.
Incredibly, the burglar has been accessing the high-rise flats by climbing down the outside from the roof. It's a brazen crime. Ron's never come across anything like it.
How he was able to do that is mind-blowing, extremely dangerous. Given that he did it during the hours of darkness, he must have been fearless to do that. But he did, and he made it his specialization.
But he's also left his mark. And Ron thinks he's found the shoes that made it.
In my search, I found a pair of trainers that had quite distinct sole and pattern. They were fairly new. And I took a Polaroid of the sole of this trainer and put that sealed inside a see-through evidence bag.
Ron's tireless search for clues has reached a critical moment. Are the trainers a match for the footprints found in the second victim's flat?
There is now the ascertain lift, as it's called by the scientists, from the trainer that we recovered in Squat being overlaid on an acetate lift taken from the house of the second victim, the male. You can, apart from you can read the make of the trainer, there are certain points indicated that are absolutely identical to one another. And as the overlay is lifted and replaced, the two marks basically become one, which means that that shoe caused that mark in that location.
Ron secured a major forensic breakthrough that ties the suspect to the second victim and the murder scene.
That's the golden hour of evidence obtainment at the initial stages. If you miss that, then you miss the opportunity to get that evidence in at the Old Bailey subsequently.
But has the suspect killed before? They find no forensic evidence at the first victim's flat linking him to her murder. So could the stolen cards hold the key?
With regards to the female victim I had dealt with earlier, the inquiries found out that her credit card had been used locally. And in all, I think £900 had been extracted. So unfortunately, they had no CCTV, so they couldn't identify the user.
If the suspect's not charged soon, the fear is he could be released to kill again. So, officers decide to revisit his girlfriend to double-check her statement.
She then withdrew the alibi and said that she was frightened of him. He was a violent individual. She knew he had committed certain burglaries. But on the weekend that the female had been murdered in that block, he had an errand to do. He left the premises and came back several hours later. He brought back a large sum of money, which he owed her.
His alibi has fallen apart, and her incredible revelations don't end there.
So they mentioned the hammer, and she said that she had loaned him a hammer of her own so he could do some DIY. Subsequently, she went to the laboratory where that hammer was still undergoing scientific process, and she said, that's the hammer.
Not only can Ron place the suspect at the scene, he's got the murder weapon too.
That was icing on the cake for us. You know, we're going to the Old Bailey.
Ron's dogged determination to crack the case has paid off. He's exposed a violent criminal who's now charged with murder. Plus, numerous burglaries in his favorite hunting ground.
I think there were 7 or 8 tower blocks he could happily steal from these locations. and the credit cards and checkbooks that we found were ready to be used by him for his criminal endeavors. And he found a way that he could continue his stealing ways by monopolizing on climbing and descending from the balconies. There was an awful lot of opportunities for him to continue stealing.
And also to commit violence.
2 of them were aggravated burglaries, where he actually woke up on one occasion, quite a senior citizen, and attacked him with a hammer. So if you're waking up when he's burgling, you will get bludgeoned, and if you die, well, that's what happens in his mind. He's still going to go away and play with your credit cards.
But the suspect won't face trial for the murder of the first female victim.
The CPS felt there was insufficient direct forensic evidence, so they would not proceed on the indictment. That, from our point of view, is frustrating.
Ahead of the trial, Ron knows they need to focus on the strong evidence they do have and show the jury the unique way the man in the dock committed his crimes.
It was decided that we could display how easy it was for someone to actually go on the roof of these high-rise blocks and climb down. So a specialist firearm unit at Scotland Yard volunteered to assist us, and they were videoed doing exactly that. They came out of the top of one of the blocks, and albeit they were wearing safety lines, etc., but it was seen that they were, without too much difficulty, able to climb down and then, of course, climb into the window and then do the opposite and climb back up again. It was seen that this could be easily done if someone had a head for heights and was fit enough and strong enough and fearless enough to do so.
It's an astonishing crime, and without this detailed detective work that went through every element of the way he operated, the accused would have got away with it. But he didn't. And after a trial at the Old Bailey, he was convicted of murder and 12 burglary charges.
We did have a celebration, and the boss put on a couple of bottles of fizz, you know, and a pork pie or 3, so, you know.
A stop in the street by local bobbies has led to a violent killer serving a life sentence.
I'm immensely proud. We obtained the evidence that eventually put a very dangerous individual off the streets of London and gave some grievance to the victims, which is in itself enough.
Join us again on Big Little Crimes, when everyday policing
It was just another day in the office.
uncovers extraordinary crimes.
I knew she'd poisoned him. I just knew it. And somebody would have got away with murder.
And cracks major cases.
This started with a small piece of information and culminated in an international investigation.
A new call every 22 seconds. A stabbing, a choking, extraordinary patience from the crew. Ambulance at 9. A death at a festival, a brutal murder, a bomb exploding, silent witness. Press red now to watch on iPlayer.